of March today. As you probably know, today is International Women's Day, and for me, it's an important day. I have my red stockings on, which you cannot see, but I do. I have been to the city center of Oslo and I went to the rally. I thought much rally, and I went also. There's like a well, first there were like speeches, and then there were like a women's march after the speeches. And it was lots of people and quite good. However, today I am not going to talk about International Women's Day in Norway or in Oslo. I am going to talk about 5 books I think are fitting to read on a day like today, or any day for that matter, but especially with focus on women and women's rights. And the first book I'm going to talk about is a Jane Austen book. Jane Austen is, if you have followed me for quite a while, you will know that Jane Austen is one of my favorite authors. A lot of people talk about her as if she's a romance writer. I actually disagree on that. I don't think it's romance at all. Yes, there are love and there's love interest, and there's a lot about it in the books. However, I think the books are a lot more deep, they have much more depth, and Pride and Prejudice is an example of this because it kind of demonstrates the situation of women at the time, of British or English women at the time. It was published in 1813, and even though these women are not poor, they're kind of upper class, but they are girls. They come in from a family with daughters only. So so it kind of shows their position in the society at the moment, at the time, and yeah. So if you were kind of a woman, your future was very unsure unless you got married. You didn't have as much rights as you would have if you were a man. And I kind of think a lot of it is also like in the opening quote. I'm going to read it for you. It says that it's a very famous opening quote. It's like among the most famous one, and it is a truth universal knowledge that a single man in possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife. So yeah, so that has a lot. That kind of tells a lot about the situation of the women, in my opinion. Um, and you have Elizabeth Bennet, who is, I'm not sure if she's the oldest. I can't remember. I've read it several times, but at the moment I can't remember whether she is the oldest daughter. It's either her or Jane. I think maybe Jane might be the oldest daughter. Her sister, but her father doesn't have a lot of money, doesn't have a huge fortune, but um, they kind of worry about their daughters, and you can see this by her mother has like this focus on their getting her daughters married, and to kind of secure their fortune, because when their father dies and if they're not married, they have a really really insecure future, because they will not inherit anything by him. And that is also seen in when Mr. Collins comes and going to propose to one of the daughters, which is his plan. And that is kind of shown as like, because then the estate sort of will be kept within a family in a way. And this Mr. Collins is actually like a distant cousin. So it kind of shows a lot of how the women's position were at the time. So I think that is kind of a really interesting perspective of the book. Orlando by Virginia Woolf. If you have read it, I don't know. It took me a long time. I didn't read it until last summer, and it's such a good book. And Virginia Woolf, if you know her, you would kind of, I don't know if you know this, but in my opinion, she's very much a feminist writer. Um, and in this book, you have Orlando, which is first a male and then kind of becomes a female. And it's very interesting to see because Orlando has lived as a man with the freedom he has had and with all the things he had been able to do. And then he turns into a woman and he kind of realizes that there's all these things he took for granted. And all of a sudden that they weren't really there anymore. So that is also a really interesting perspective of this book. There is also a lot more to this book, to be sure. I really, really love this book. It's one of my favorites. Jane Austen was also one of my favorites, like Pride and Prejudice, but Pride and Prejudice is not my favorite Jane Austen book, but Orlando is most definitely my favorite Virginia Woolf book. So it has a really, really interesting perspective in that way, and hence I think it's very much a feminist book and also a fitting book for today. Another book I'm going to talk about is Girls Burn Brighter by Shobha Rao. Shobha Rao. Oh my god, I am really sorry if I'm slaughtering the name. I have totally feelings for all the English speakers who slaughter my name. I don't make a huge fuss about people not being able to pronounce my name correctly, but I have absolutely no clue how she does pronounce her name. Anyway, it's not important. This book is also a very important read in many ways because it kind of highlights the situation of women in India, especially if you're really poor. And I know some critics have said that, oh, it gives a really shitty picture of India and not all of India is as bad as this. However, it does show that there are a lot of young women in India, and especially if they're poor, they have a really hard time. There's lots of examples of this. So I think that this was kind of a really interesting thing. So it's basically about two Indian women. It's Purnima and Savita, and they are both born to poverty, and they haven't really known a lot of kindness in their lives. And they meet as teenagers and become very, very, very close friends. So there's an act of devastating cruelty that kind of drives Savita away, and Parmina leaves behind everything she has ever known to try to find her friend. So it's a very tough read in many ways because there's a lot of abuse towards women in this book, and how easy it is, especially if you're a woman on your own, how easy it is to be that someone will take advantage of you, especially if you don't really know where to go. And so I thought that was a really, really interesting and important read, and I really, really liked this book. It was a really good. I read it really early last year. So that's also a good read for 8th of March. And it also shows that it's still important to have a day like today. The next book I'm going to mention is Between Two Thorns by Emma Newman. I know I have followers here who have read the Planetful series by Emma Newman. Between Two Thorns is the first book in the Split World series. It's a series of 5 books. And these books are very much feminist books. It portrays a world that is kind of similar to the 18th century in many ways. And the main character has sort of run away because she doesn't want to be pressed into an arranged marriage, if I remember correctly. And it's you might be surprised, but but this is actually fantasy. I forgot to tell you. It's fantasy, and you have these fairy courts, and the fairy court is very patriarchic, and the courts are kind of very, you kind of marry to connect families, and it kind of shows things that have actually happened in history, and it's so well written, and it's so good. So yeah, um it's been a very long time since I actually read this book, but I think I would really wanted to mention it because I know that there are a lot of people who enjoy Emma Newman's books, and I love her books. I love all her books. I could have also mentioned her other, like her steampunk series, but there's just one book in the series. The thing about this series is that it has ended. It's over. It's completed. So it's just 5 books and easy to read. So highly recommend this book, and it's very feminist as well. And then I am going to mention, sorry, I have to move books here. This book, Aldri, 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 by Linn Strømsborg. And you might wonder, why on earth am I mentioning? Well, it's a Norwegian book, as you can tell. And I don't want to leave this out because it was one of my favorite, if not the favorite book of mine last year. And it's kind of important because it talks about women not wanting to have kids and how important to voice that view. I met someone who has read this book and was kind of said that, but she never really gives a good explanation on why she doesn't want kids. She does a lot of debating on whether she wants kids or not, and she always kind of falls back to the conclusion that she doesn't want kids, the main character in this book. And in my opinion, it is a woman's right not wanting to have kids. And why should she have a good reason for it? Does she have to have a good reason? In my opinion, no. Not wanting to have kids should be a reason good enough. Though the society seems to think that if you're a woman, you should want kids. It's kind of your one of your life tasks to have kids. You meet people who say that, oh, you if you don't want kids, you're egocentric. You don't know what you're missing out on, and you probably heard it all, right? So I think it's so important to have books like this to voice the people, the women who does not want kids. So it's important. So that was the 5 books I wanted you to read for International Women's Day. All female authors, of course, and all books I really like and would highly recommend. So, which books do you think are fitting? Which book would you recommend for someone to read that is kind of feminist perspective? I would love to hear it. So, please subscribe, please comment, but no hate. There is no room for hate here. And I will see you in my next video. Bye!